Welcome to the Sports Scouting Report podcast with Lee Brecheen.
Hi, everyone. We're recording. You're listening to the Sports Scouting Report. I'm your host, Lee Brecheen. Today's show, it's National Signing Day. It doesn't feel like it, and I'm sure all our recruiting fanatics that listen to the show or all the people that follow recruiting like me, I've been following recruiting since 1974. And I'm sure there's some people that have been following it since 1960 and probably since 1950. But we're going to talk about signing day. There's not a lot to talk about, but I'm going to give my 3 cents about the LSU class now that Savion Jones has signed to make it 21 signees. Should be 22 signees at the end of the day. And if they win a battle, a close battle, it could end up being 23. And that'll leave them a couple of scholarships. We'll talk about that for transfers. We'll talk about the state colleges, kind of sum up what's going to be going on. I've been telling a lot of the parents that I work for, we've been emailing and talking to college coaches. I have kind of how this is going to go down because I talked to over 70 college coaches in the last 2 weeks over the phone. Obviously, I've called over 100 colleges. And that's from D1, 1AA, D2, D3, junior colleges, and prep schools. We're also going to talk about tidbits today. We're going to have some great Louisiana stuff today, information that people need to know, college coaches that were at LSU at one time or Tech, and where they are now. We're going to have that in tidbits. We got a little tidbit on Coach Ron Abernathy that used to be at LSU for basketball. He's doing great in high school basketball right now in the state of Tennessee. And we've got just some tidbits about some players and some young assistants. And, again, they have Louisiana ties. And you're going to want to hear that. I mean, it's just something that no one else has. It's me doing it because I was on the phone with a lot of colleges. So I've got a lot of college information. Let's go ahead and go into recruiting this segment and talk about National Signing Day. This is the second signing day. And the reason it doesn't feel like regular – the regular, right? Usually it's February 3rd and, you have this is 10 years ago, right? We all know this, that, all your players would sign on February 3rd. There wasn't an early signing day. And now with COVID-19 and transfer portal, and now you can transfer anywhere at any given time for this 1 year, I think that'll happen with the NCAA pretty soon. So players like Eric Gilbert will be able to play immediately at Florida, and once that passes, I think it will this week. I hope it won't. But it's changed the whole landscape of recruiting. And I was on the phone, again, with over 100 college coaches in the last 2 weeks. And all of them basically told me the same thing. And, because of COVID and because of the kids getting another year, the college kids right now getting another year, the seniors getting an extra year from the NCAA. That took a lot of scholarships. 2, the transfer portal. There's a lot of kids in the transfer portal now that are quality players that can play right away, not just graduate transfers. And so that changed everything. So colleges right now, with signing day being today, they're going after transfers before they're going after high school seniors. And let me tell you why. It's not something I like, but it's all about win now. You got to win now. If you don't win now, you're fired. So they want older kids that have already got experience in like the SEC or the Big 12, the Big 10, the Pac-12, the Sun Belt, Conference USA, the SWAC, the whole gambit. In colleges, they want these kids that have experience that are older, that maybe went ahead and got matured. They were matured at, making a bad decision. Maybe they signed too far off from home. Maybe they want to come back to Louisiana. Maybe they're from Florida. They want to get back to their home state of Georgia. And now they're matured. They're matured, meaning they're likely to stay the second time. Not all of these guys. And so what's going to happen in talking to college coaches is that a lot of high school kids are going to get their scholarships in the next couple of months, the ones that do. They're going to start recruiting high school kids for the next couple of months. They're trying to get their transfers sorted out, and then once they get their transfers, if they see they can't get that big transfer, then they're going to take the best high school player available in their state. And that's talking to coaches in Texas, college coaches. I've talked to coaches at SMU, North Texas, University of Troy, I talked to the coaches at Western Kentucky, ULM of Monroe. I've talked to them, Richmond College. Heck, I can go on and on and on. Sam Houston State, Villanova, just schools all over the place. TCU, Tulsa, Baylor, are just a few of the coaches that I've talked to over the phone out of 100 that all pretty much said the same thing. And all the kids that are signing today, congratulations. But again, this is not a norm year. It might not be normal moving forward. You might not see all your players sign moving forward. If they keep this transfer portal open and they let kids transfer and play immediately, the NCAA, which I don't like, then the high school kids are going to get the last offers, and this could go on all the way to August. This is what most colleges have told me, and this is what I thought would happen. But at the end of the day, it's where you go in the end. It doesn't matter if it's February 3rd or December early signing day or if it's August. It's where you end up in the end. And there's, 70% of the high school kids in Louisiana are still trying to decide where they want to go, and the colleges are still trying to decide if they won't even call them yet, again, because they're trying to look at the transfer portal. So we're still helping kids right now. We've helped a lot of kids that have gotten some good offers to go preferred walk-on and some scholarships that didn't have anything. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, I'm going to talk about LSU and what they did today and how the day might end. This show's going to go out before the day's over, but how this might end for LSU and how it should end and what I think LSU needs to do to have a national championship playoff kind of team in 2021. We'll be right back. Listen, whatever you're driving right now, Tommy Harvey wants it. Bring it in to Harvey Subaru, Lexus of Shreveport, Bossier City, or John Harvey Toyota. They're paying big bucks for all trades right now. They'll cut you a check right there. Tell them Lee sent you. Welcome back. You listen to the Sports Scouting Report. I'm Lee Brecheen. We're going to get to our tidbit topics. And look, Louisiana people are going to love that. I got a lot of great information talking to colleges the past 2 weeks. And I've caught up with a lot of ex-LSU coaches. I can tell you where they're going to be, where they're coaching now. I'll share that with all our listeners. A lot of good stuff. But before we do that, in this segment, let's talk about LSU. So after the first signing day in December, they had 20 signees. They decided to keep 5 signees and be a little more pickier for need. And so LSU right now is trying to fill the need of the team. Where do they need players the most? Not that you're not good enough to go to LSU, but what do they need from here on out to compete for a championship? Well, signing number 21 was today the top player in the state, Savion Jones from St. James High School. And I mentioned it in my podcast 2 weeks ago, and I'm going to mention it today. He is the best pass rusher signed by LSU from the state of Louisiana since Gabe Northern and James Gilliard many moons ago. We're talking 20-plus years ago. I thought they were 2 of the best Louisiana pass rushers from Louisiana. I think he's the best pass rusher LSU signed since Kenny Mixon. We're going to go back 30 years from Pineville High School. Played for the Dolphins, was a great player, just didn't pan out long in the NFL. Now, defensive ends from signing with LSU that were great, not from Louisiana, were Danielle Hunter from Houston, Texas, Katy, Texas, and Sam Montgomery. They called him Sonic Sam from South Carolina. Right? Those were the great DNs recently. And Chasson from Houston, Texas, North Shore High School, who's now at Jacksonville Jaguars. And I really believe that Savion Jones has more potential than all of those kids that we mentioned. And look how good Danielle Hunter is now with the Minnesota Vikings, if he stays there. Now, I'm not saying he's going to be Danielle Hunter and lead the league in sacks, but I'm telling you, he has Danielle Hunter ability. And I think Danielle Hunter was the most talented of all the guys we mentioned, out of Gabe Northern, James Gilliard, Kenny Mixon, Chasson, Sam Montgomery. And then there was Borkevis Mingo, who never really became a big guy, but he was tall and athletic and was a great pass rusher at LSU. But Savion Jones is way better than Borkevis Mingo. And, hey, by the way, he's still in the NFL, 9 years later with the Chicago Bears. But I think Savion Jones has Danielle Hunter ability, and he's way ahead Danielle Hunter. Way, 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 way more advanced. This kid's 6'5", 250 pounds, 245, runs a 4.5 in the 40, and he sprints, and he is all out chasing quarterbacks. He's got a gift. He is special, and he hasn't even hit his upside yet, meaning once he gets about 270, 265, and he's going to be lean, kind of like Danielle Hunter at 6'5" in height. This kid's going to be one of the best pass rushers, I think, in the SEC. And by the way, Arden Key was another DN that LSU signed, but he was from Georgia, from Atlanta. And Arden Key is not as advanced as Savion Jones. But I still think Danielle Hunter had the most ability of all the guys we mentioned, and I think Savion has his body frame. He's a guy that gets with Tommy Moffitt and becomes that dominant DN when he gains that next 15 pounds of muscle that's going to make him super strong. Right now he's just unguardable because he's so fast and he's tall. And he's strong for a guy that's not thick yet. And he is 245, 250, don't get me wrong. That's good weight. That's more weight than Mingo had coming out of West Monroe. That's bigger than Sam Montgomery. That's bigger than Danielle Hunter. That's bigger than Kenny Mixon coming out of high school. Sonic Sam Montgomery. And Chasson, that's all bigger than all of those guys. They were all in their 230 range, 235 in weight. Now let's talk about the state colleges. The biggest signee today from Louisiana that didn't sign early was Destin Hill from Edna Carr, receiver, who could play corner. He signed with Florida State. I think he was a guy that could have went to LSU, would have went to LSU. I don't think LSU offered him because they just don't need another receiver. And he's going to get the chance to start for Florida State as a freshman. He's a special kid. You can't take 6 receivers. You can't take 5 receivers because Brian Thomas would be 5. I think they would move one of these kids to corner if Brian Thomas, by the way, talking to Brian Thomas, Walker High School, I still think that Brian Thomas is one of the top 3 receivers in the country. And LSU doesn't have a Brian Thomas on their roster. You read a lot about people that say LSU's deep at receiver and they have a lot of great receivers. They do, but they don't have anybody like him. They don't have a tall guy that's 6'4", that's 195, runs 4.4, and can do the things he can do. They don't have a guy like that. They've got some guys that are 6 feet, 6'1", 2, 5'11". Butte's about 6 foot tall, but they don't have that 6'4" tall, big receiver that's going to weigh about 220 and look like Megatron when he's done. I mean, Brian Thomas, when his body's done, he's going to be about 220, running 4.45, and I think he has a chance to be a first, second round pick in the NFL. So LSU, will they get Brian Thomas? I mean, it's going to come down to LSU and Texas A&M, I think. Alabama ran out of scholarships. They're choosing to go for need over a great player. I'd be shocked if he signed with Alabama today by the time the show comes out. But I think he ends up at Texas A&M or LSU. And I don't know if he signs today. I mean, he might be a guy that waits another 2-3 weeks like several players have done. You don't have to sign today. You don't have to. You can sign all the way between now and August to enroll in the fall. And as far as the other state colleges, like Tulane, Louisiana Tech, ULM of Monroe, Northwestern State, McNeese, Southern, Grambling, Louisiana College, McNeese State, Nicholls State, Southeastern, again, what I said earlier, they're going to try and get transfers because Again, when I'm hearing on the phone from the college coaches, it's about win now. It's not what people want to hear, but it's about they want older players that are more mature, that have experience playing at the D1 level, that might want to start at the 1AA level or at a smaller D1 school. It's a win-now mentality in football because of free agency. Let's face it, this is free agency now. If you can transfer at any minute like Eric Gilbert going to Florida, which makes no sense. I mean, Gilbert almost caught 40 passes, and he only played in, basically 8 or 9 of the games of the 12. And he goes to Florida, and they don't even have the offensive coordinator that recruited him to transfer. He left. He goes to Florida, who finished horribly this past year, and LSU beat him. He's an amazing talent, but it doesn't make any sense. You usually don't go to a school and the offensive coordinator leaves from the NFL. But it's a crazy world right now with football and college coaching. Again, it's a win-now mentality. Give a kid a playbook. You got to be polished. And if you want to go to the big schools, they don't have time to develop you anymore at the big schools. They need you to be ready to come in and play. You got to go. You got to work hard, get strong. You got to have the ability to play. And if you walk on, you got to wait your turn. But with the transfer portal, you can play as a walk-on now at a big school, if you can at least get through that first year of college. We're going to go take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about our tidbits. Look, Louisiana people are going to love this topic. It's about Louisiana coaches and where are they now. When we come back, I got a big list because I talked to a lot of these guys over the phone, or I talked to the college coaches, and they told me, by the way, such and such is coaching here now. And I want to share that with our listeners. I think this is what the podcast is good for, is to share Louisiana information that people don't know about. And also, to finish this segment before we go to a break, LSU's got 3 scholarships left, basically, to use on transfers. Right now, they have 21. 22, they're going to get a signature today from Kaimo McAnally, who's an offensive guard tackle from Florida. 6'4", 300 pounds, runs a 5'1" in the 40, very athletic kid. One of the top 50 players in the state of Florida, right basically by Destin, Florida. Right on the Florida coastline there. His family, they're from Hawaii, and his dad moved to Florida because he's in the military. So they're not really Florida natives, which enabled LSU to go to the Florida Gulf Coast and get another player. It's their second signee from the Florida Gulf Coast this year. Daenerys McGehee, the corner, signed with LSU from Pensacola Catholic High School. It's been a long time since LSU went to the Florida Gulf Coast and got not only 1 but 2 players in the top 75 in the state of Florida. So if LSU lands 1 more player today, if they get their 23rd player, it's going to be a special player. If not, they're going to save those 3 scholarships. Here's my prediction. They're going to save the scholarships for either 2 linebackers and a corner, or 1 linebacker, an O-lineman, and a corner. Or they might go a safety, another safety, a corner, and a linebacker. They want to make sure they have the depth at DB this year and at linebacker to go into the season, and the right older players. And they probably won't turn down a D tackle if they can get a great one that's still available, or someone that is qualified late in recruiting. We're going to go ahead and take a break. When we come back, we're going to have our tidbits, where they are now as coaches, and you're going to love this segment coming up. We'll be right back. Looking for a used car? Harvey Autos has 3 dealerships, which means 3 times the used vehicles. They've got everything from fuel-efficient compacts to luxury models, even hybrids, and certified pre-owned with a warranty. Check out John Harvey Toyota, Harvey Subaru, or Lexus of Shreveport, Bossier City. Welcome back. You're listening to the Sports Scouting Report. I'm Lee Brecheen, your host. This is going to be a great segment If you like keeping up with football coaches from Louisiana or coaches that coached at LSU and Tech, I'm going to talk about where guys are now, and it's going to blow your mind. Some people might know this. I think a lot of people won't. But before we get into the coaches, I've got some tidbits on some Louisiana natives. First of all, Ron Abernathy, the ex-LSU basketball assistant that was a longtime assistant for Dale Brown, got his 150th win on January the 9th as a head basketball coach, high school basketball at Humboldt High School in Tennessee, the Vikings, Humboldt. He's led his team in 7 years, 4 of those years to the finals in high school basketball in Tennessee. 6 of the 7 years to the playoffs. Congratulations, Coach Ron Abernathy, getting 150 wins in high school basketball. Incredible as a coach. He was one of the best recruiters ever. He was a great assistant to Dale Brown. Was very instrumental in getting John Williams from Crenshaw High School in California. If you don't remember John Williams and you're too young, he was a 6'8", incredible talent forward out of Los Angeles that played for Dale and later played in the NBA with the Washington Bullets, is who drafted him. He was a phenomenal player. And Ron Abernathy was just a great coach at LSU for many years with Dale Brown. But he is at Humboldt High School in Tennessee, 150 wins as a coach. Also, Lowell Narcisse, our quarterback that left LSU, remember, went to UT San Antonio. I had a chance to talk to the coaches at UT San Antonio yesterday. I have a friend of mine who's on the staff who coaches the D-line, and his name's Darren Drago. I did Darren Drago's highlight tape many years ago. He played at Redemptorist and went to Northwestern State, was a fullback. Well, Darren coaches the D-line at UT San Antonio. Darren's from Baton Rouge. And he told me that Lowell Narcisse was doing great this year in 2020, but he broke his ankle in week 5, was the starter. And in 2019, he started 7 games, but had an injury. He's had a lot of injuries. He had a couple of knee injuries prior to signing with LSU. But I'm just, prayers to Lowell Narcisse. I pray that he has a great recovery. They said he's doing good. Coach Drago said that Narcisse is going to be probably their guy. It'll be his redshirt senior year in 2021. And, you know, if you forgot about Narcisse, he actually was doing a great job. Again, he was started the first 5 games for UT San Antonio this past year. He's 6'2.5". Coach told me he weighs 230 to 235. They like him at about 225. And he's running well now. They said once he gets back from this broken ankle, he should be he's going to probably be in a Senior Bowl game if he has a great senior year. A lot of people have forgot about Lowell Narcisse from St. James High School. Another tidbit is former Kansas assistant coach, former Warren Easton head football coach, Tony Hull has a chance to become an assistant at ULM of Monroe. There's a good chance that might happen in the coming days. Tony Hull was really, really a phenomenal coach at Warren Easton in New Orleans, coached Tyron Johnson, who went to LSU, then Oklahoma State. Now he's in the NFL with the Chargers. And Tony Hull got that program turned around at Warren Easton. He was a great pioneer of getting that program to the state championship game, and they still keep it at that level to this day. They have a great program, Warren Easton. When we come back, we're going to talk about the tidbits of the coaches from Louisiana, where they are now, by me talking to a lot of these guys over the phone over the last 2 weeks. We'll be right back. So, hey, guys, just wanted to take a minute to tell you about Harvey Autos. If you need a new or used car, there's 3 great dealerships right here worth checking out. John Harvey Toyota, Harvey Subaru, and Lexus of Shreveport, Bossier City. Low prices, honest people. Tell them Lee sent you. Welcome back. You listen to the Sports Scouting Report. I'm your host, Lee Brecheen. We went through recruiting, LSU, some of the tidbits. of Ron Abernathy, former LSU basketball assistant. We talked about, Lowell Northeast, who's going to have a great senior year, I think, in 221 for UT San Antonio from St. James High School, former LSU quarterback. This segment, we're going to talk about college coaches from Louisiana or that were at LSU or somewhere at Louisiana Tech and where they are now. We kind of forgot about these guys. But I'm excited to share this with our listeners. Bradley Del Pivito, I called UTEP the other day in El Paso, Texas. UTEP is a D1 program. He's the D coordinator now for UTEP. He was at UTEP in 2020 this year. I had a chance to talk to Bradley Del Pivito early this summer, and he had taken the job. I guess he took the job late in the summer after I talked to him. But Bradley Del Pivito is the D coordinator, and also Joe Robinson, who they call Joe Rob, was at LSU with Pivito under Les Miles. He's the special teams coach for UTEP, University of Texas, El Paso, which is a D1 school in El Paso, Texas. And also, Chevis Jackson. Remember Chevis Jackson that played cornerback for LSU? Graduate of 2008, the LSU Tigers won a national championship. He's the DB coach for the University of Kansas, currently for Les Miles. And here's a bunch of guys I want to tell you about. This is a shocker, but Jordan Jefferson, remember the former LSU quarterback? He's a receivers coach at Navarro Junior College in Texas. Before that, he was at Colorado State as a grad assistant. That's right. Justin Jefferson's brother, Jordan Jefferson, is a receivers coach at Navarro Junior College in Texas. He's going to be moving up. I think he'll end up at a 1AA D1 school as a position coach really soon. Also, this will blow your mind. When Curly Hallman was the head football coach at LSU over 30 years ago, his staff, most of his staff that came with him from Southern Miss is still coaching to this day. And it's incredible, after 40-something years of college coaching, most of that staff is still coaching. And I'm going to go through it. Former LSU assistant coach to Curly Hallman, Larry Edmondson's coaching high school football in Houston, Texas. Offensive coordinator Daryl Dickey is now the offensive coordinator at Texas A&M with Jimbo Fisher. He used to be at LSU with Curly Hallman. Former LSU defensive coordinator Phil Bennett is now the current defensive coordinator at North Texas in Denton, Texas. That's right, Phil Bennett's at North Texas. He used to recruit Shreveport, Louisiana for LSU. Former LSU defensive coach Steve Davis is currently the defensive coordinator at Stetson College in Florida. Currently, Steve Davis, remember Steve Davis that was at LSU? He's the D coordinator at Stetson. Stetson's in Deland, Florida, which is not far from Miami. But isn't that crazy that most of that staff, all those gentlemen I just mentioned, I talked to a lot of these guys over the phone, that they're still in coaching after, a lot of them after 50 years. And look at what kind of staff that was. Daryl Dickey's at A&M now as a coordinator. Phil Bennett's a coordinator. Steve Davis is a coordinator. And Larry Edmondson had coached at Rice University for several years, tight ends and receivers. And by the way, a little tidbit, Larry Edmondson recruited Kevin Falk and signed Kevin Falk to LSU. He was the one responsible recruiting him for Curly and developing that relationship, and helped him, even though he was fired after Curly Hallman's staff was let go. Kevin Falk still came in and went to LSU. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, I'm going to talk about the coaching hires at LSU. Speaking of coaches, I'm going to talk about Blake Baker, Andre Carter, and Durante Jones, all three new coaches for the LSU defense. We'll talk about that when we come back. We'll be right back.
Parents, are you looking for advice on getting your high school athlete recruited by the right college? Lee Brecheen is your answer. Lee has been doing it for over 30 years. He knows the ropes, and more importantly, he knows the people. Lee offers turnkey service from evaluation, creating highlight tapes in the correct format, and complete guidelines for effective communication with the schools. No matter the sport, girl or boy, no matter what grade your child is in, let Lee Brecheen help match your child to the right college fit. Go to our website, lafootballmagazine.com, and get connected today.
Welcome back, everyone. I hope you're enjoying the show. I hope you're enjoying the information we're giving out for not only recruiting. It doesn't seem like signing day because it's not the last day for 70% of the high school kids to sign, which is going to take place over the next 2 to 3 months because of the way things have changed. In this segment, I want to talk about the defensive staff that Ed Orgeron brought in to come in for 221. And I'm all about the players. If you don't have the players, you're going to have a hard time winning. And any high school coach hearing this, they agree with me. You got to have some talent. If you want to win championships in any conference, you have to have talent. And it's the responsibility of the coaches to develop these kids or teach them an offense or defense to learn. I don't think it's as much development anymore, like I mentioned earlier in the show. I think it's more playbook and to teach the defensive scheme, to teach a kid who has the talent that's not a project, not rusty, not raw, but polished, to come in, compete, and learn the defensive scheme and know what they are supposed to do. Will this defense for LSU be able to put out the fires of 220? They couldn't stop anybody's run game, anybody's pass game, and they didn't have the depth because they had lost so many kids in the offseason from their 3-2 deep depth chart. Can they build their defense back to be a true 2 to 3 deep of talent? They can, but Ed Orgeron's got to keep, like I've mentioned 3 or 4 times on this program, between now and August and between now and September the 5th, they can't lose any players on their 3 deep that they want to be a part of this team, either on special teams or on the defense or on the offense. Because you already have to replace Eric Gilbert, which now the best player in the class in 220 is gone. Your most precious signee is gone to Florida, who you're going to play at home in Tiger Stadium. You can't lose any more players. And I think if you're a fan of LSU, and I've been watching LSU since I was a little boy, and I've been keeping up with them since I could walk and talk. They have to keep the players in this program. So these new coaches, where I'm going to see they're the real deal, is that there's no more attrition. If there's no more attrition, that means these new coaches signed up are already talking to their kids, and they've convinced them that they're going to be in a defense that's going to do well, and that they're going to coach them in the spring, and that they're going to get them ready in the fall. But you can't lose your talent to build championships. We can talk about X's and O's, 4-3 defense, 3-4, 5-6 DBs. We can talk about, having 2 mics, 1 outside linebacker, bucks, whatever you want to call it, whatever you want to name these guys. If you don't have the talent, you can't win championships. So they need to put a cork on the bottle and not let anything out and let anything go again. Nothing. They can't lose the players that are marquee players in the program. It's got to stop. Recruiting was good enough to keep this going or to get it back. It wasn't a top 5 class in recruiting. It wasn't one of the best of all time. But what it was is they took some players that want to be LSU Tigers that can play. They took some kids in this class like Jack Besh and the Langlois kid from Catholic Point Capee that want to be Tigers. They took some players out of state that want to be LSU Tigers, that want to help get this program back. But the attrition has to stop. It's got to stop now. Or coaches like Blake Baker, Andre Carter, the D-line coach, Blake Baker, the linebackers coach, and Durante Jones, the D coordinator, they're not going to be successful if they don't have the talent and the depth. To run any defense you choose to run, you got to have guys coming in and off the bench who are good enough to be backups. And LSU right now, their only weakness, if you study the roster and you know the team and you watch the team like I do, and what's coming back, they don't go into the season right now with a ton of linebackers. They need a couple of older guys in the portal. They need a couple of dudes. Trust me, when LSU had Patrick Queen on defense, it was a little different defense, wasn't it, in 2019? Or when you had a Phillips at linebacker at 240, 6'3", to just come in like a tank and take care of business in the run game. Jacob Phillips from Tennessee. You've got to have different parts and pieces and talented guys to make this work. You don't want a guy like a Jacoby Stevens playing out of position because you don't have enough talent, like what happened in 220. Jacoby Stevens was playing safety because they didn't have a safety, and he's a linebacker. And it's very easily to, if you don't know football, you say, well, Jacoby Stevens is struggling, man. He's not a safety, first of all. And then they didn't even have linebackers. They had Jabril Cox, who was a transfer from North Dakota State. He did a good job, but he couldn't play all three roles. And Micah Bakersfield came on late, and I think he's got a chance to be a good linebacker. I still think Damone Clark has a chance to be a good linebacker. He just wasn't quite there yet. And they need these young linebackers they signed in 220 to come on. The Anton Sampay kid from Virginia, he needs to step up and gain weight and be the linebacker they thought he would be. Along with the Texas kid, the Houston, Texas linebacker they signed that played a little bit this year. And Phillip Webb, who didn't play this year, from Georgia. These guys need to come back. And so this is proof in the pudding. These new coaches that were brought in, they need to go to their position players the day they were hired and say, kid, we need you to stick with the program. We're going to build something special on defense. We need you to win. We need you to stick around in Baton Rouge to win. We need you. You might not start, but you're going to play a lot. Special teams, you're going to play second or third down. But they need to keep these kids on the team. They need to find a way to change the mentality to where everybody's on one page and the staff is one staff. Like the magic you saw in 2019 when LSU won the national championship with a staff that worked so well together. And a team that loved each other, a team that was so intertwined. Leadership everywhere, and the belief they were going to win and not lose. And they didn't lose a game in 2019. They got to get that back. And do they have the talent to win next year? Yes. Could they go 10-2? Definitely in 2021. Could they go better than 10-2? Yes. But you can't keep losing your talent players in the program. You can't have a guy go in the portal that's going to start for you or be on the second team as an O or D lineman or a linebacker or a safety or a corner or a receiver and say, I'm leaving. That kid needs to be convinced that you don't need to leave. You need to stay here and be a part of a team and that things are going to be different. And so that's how we're going to judge these coaches. And look, all the high school coaches that are listening to the show or college coaches, they all agree with me. Great players make great coaches. Now, great coaches put kids in a great position. They teach them the defense at the college level. In high school, they're teaching fundamentals. High school coaches have it harder. High school coaches have to teach kids how to play the game. College coaches, again, they love to give them a playbook, the big schools, and there's no development. And so that's my answer to college signing day with LSU. Everybody's caught up too much into, okay, how is this class ranked? That's not the future. The future is, how did you recruit Louisiana? Which they did a good job considering the horrible year they had. They basically lost 2 or 3 kids in the top 15 I thought that they should have got. But losing just 3, it's not bad. And then they were able to get a lot of great players to keep it going. But right now it's about keeping the kids on the team that signed in 220, 219, 218, 217 classes. And then we're going to see if the talent is there, the depth is there, and no more great players leave the program, then guys like Andre Carter, the D-line coach, Blake Baker, the linebackers coach, and Durante Jones, the D coordinator, it'll be great for them, and they'll get a raise and make a lot of money, and they'll be able to either renew their contracts or become head coaches somewhere. That's how this works. Every time you get billed as an up-and-coming coordinator as the next big thing, and you proved it for 1 year, it's only a 1-year deal now, and you get these big jobs. You don't have to win for 5 years to get a big job. It's hard to keep coaches, but Saban's in the same boat. He gets coaches every year that leave, and then he gets more coaches. But the reason Alabama is so successful, they keep their players in the program that they want to keep. They even keep kids from leaving the NFL, unless you're a first-round pick. And they even get first-rounders to come back. That's the mentality LSU's got to do. And they're on their way with that. I got to take my hat off to Orgeron that he did go out and recruit the team back. Outside of Eric Gilbert, he recruited the O-line and D-line back. That was something he had to do. If he didn't do that, LSU would go into next year with no depth. Yeah, they would be talented, but they would have no depth. You can't win with no depth playing 8 SEC games a year, or 8 or 9. Because every time it's by week 5 in the SEC, everybody's beat up, and it's the team that's got the second and third team talent players that have to start. Those are the ones that keep winning. That's why Bama, Florida, Georgia, and LSU, those are the top teams in the league. And I feel for Tennessee. Tennessee, if you would have told me 15 years ago when Fullett Farmer was there, and they had T. Martin and they won the national championship, and they had Peyton Manning, they had Casey Clausen at quarterback, they had the who's who coming out of California signing with them, Kevin Barnett, they had all these great running backs, they had Albert Haynesworth, they had all these great D tackles, they had Jason Witten at tight end. And then it just went to nothing. I mean, you can lose it quickly. If you lose too long and have too many bad hires. And I really feel for Tennessee again. I do. And Arkansas has been down a long time. Ole Miss had a little bit of success with Eli Manning. Mississippi State had a little success with Dak Prescott, and then Mullen left. But it could happen to Florida. It could happen to all these guys again. And now Texas A&M is an up-and-coming program. But can they sustain? And I think they will, because they're stockpiling D tackles and O-linemen. Jimbo Fisher's locking in all those D tackles in Texas and a lot of those good O-linemen. Makes the job easy on a quarterback and your linebackers and your DBs when you're getting these top big-time linemen. So LSU's got their work cut out for them with Texas A&M improved. Ole Miss is improved, and Mississippi State will be improved. And Arkansas, it's going to be tough. I'm going to tell you, it's going to be tough. This is going to be tougher than the 2019 season. 2019, the SEC was down outside of Alabama and LSU. In 2021, everybody's going to be good except probably Vandy. Even Kentucky and Missouri are good right now. And South Carolina has talent. They just got to put it together with a new coach. It's going to be tougher for Orgeron to get this team to a playoff game in 21 compared to 19. It's a different league. It's a tougher league to win now. And the West is a lot more, Arkansas is rebuilt now with their new coach. Again, Ole Miss is rebuilding And Lane Kiffin's doing a good job. Mississippi State, Coach Leach is going to do a good job at State. And then A&M. It's going to be tough. Now, but again, they have the talent to go 10-2 or better if they keep these guys from leaving the program. If you see guys leaving the program over the summer that are on the 2 deep or the 1 deep, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough to get it back. But like I said, you can see these new coaches, the job they're doing is to keep these kids in the program. That's their kids. Those are the kids that they're going to coach. Let's see what they do. Let's see if they get these guys to come back, if they develop them, if they teach them, if they play as a unit. I hope everybody enjoyed the show today. I had a real treat talking about recruiting, the tidbits of the Louisiana native coaches, or the coaches that coached at LSU. And by the way, Joe Robb, who I mentioned earlier, that's at UTEP, University of Texas El Paso, with Bradley Del Pivito. Joe Robb was also at Louisiana Tech back in the day. And he was actually a graduate assistant in 1989 with Louisiana Tech. Joe Robinson, who's now the special teams coach at UTEP, was at LSU for a long time with Les Miles. And actually from 1990 to 1991, he was a recruiting coordinator at Louisiana Tech. All the way to 2001, he went back again to Tech, and he was at LSU from 2008 to 2010. They call him Joe Robb. It's Joe Robinson, one of the best special teams coaches in the country. He graduated from LSU, actually. But again, I hope everybody has a great Wednesday. By the time you hear the show, it'll be probably 5 o'clock in the afternoon. We taped it at around 1 o'clock. And if anything changes, we'll update on Friday. We'll have a great guest on Friday. I don't want to tell you who it is yet, but we're going to have a really, really great guest on Friday's show, which we're going to do every week. We're going to try and get a pro coach, pro player, college coach, or college football player, or baseball or basketball, or any sport. You're listening to the Sports Scouting Report. I'm your host, Lee Brecheen. We will see you on Friday.
Thanks for listening to the Sports Scouting Report podcast with Lee Brecheen.